Hello and welcome to A Piece of String, the show that brings together comedians and scientific minds to ask and maybe answer the biggest of all questions ever. I'm Matthew Shribman, I'm a chemist and some might say a biophysicist. And with me today are Josie Peters, an astrophysicist.
Hello.
James Wells, an engineer.
Lulu.
And special guest, James Hartley, a doctor.
Hello.
Three of us, and three of us only, will ask you questions which one of us secretly knows the answer, and points will be allocated on a tyro arbitrary basis by our producer, Sam Lee. And the winner will get this small tyre remover for a bike that I am holding. Josie, what's your question for us today?
My question is, what would life be like if we became 2D? Jaws drop across the room.
So the different dimensions are up and down.
Which is one.
Left and right.
Left and right. And
Forwards
then,
and backwards.
Yes.
So it's like your height, your width, and your girth.
But also going through time is every time passes, you're technically in a new coordinate of space.
So that's the fourth dimension.
It is.
But we can't control it.
No.
Can you control it?
I try.
Tell us about some dimensions that you explored recently, James.
Hang on, can I just stop for a second? That was a really hard question to start with.
I know.
Can we warm up with a better question?
But yeah, okay, so Robert, we've got three dimensions. We're happy about that. You know, we don't have...
Well,
Sorry,
James.
I'm just saying that, we know that there are three dimensions because you can move in two planes at the same time.
yeah. Well, I mean, let's not forget that handy dimension of time.
Yeah, well, yeah, got time as well.
Yeah,
But that one we can't
always moving
control.
through that.
Can't
No.
control that one. James, what's your favourite two-dimensional cartoon? And what can we learn from it?
My favourite two-dimensional cartoon. I am a big fan of Cow and Chicken. Have you ever seen that?
I have.
It was on the Cartoon
And
Network.
there's a lot we can learn from it.
Do you know what? I'm always disappointed by modern day cartoons, mainly because they're not cartoons. They would argue that they are in three dimensions now because they're all animated.
Yeah.
But I'd argue that two dimensions is better.
The drawn ones.
Yeah, the drawn ones.
Instead of the computer helped.
But the thing is, like, The Simpsons is a 3D world that's just drawn in 2D. So it just like borrows our perception of transforming that into 3D on our mind. So like the animators decide whether they go behind or in front of like a chest of drawers or a sofa or whatever they're walking past. Because they're in a 3D world that's just shown in 2D. I was thinking about if everything was 2D and everything could only move in 2D.
But like multiple things would occupy the same space, wouldn't they? In the sense that they'd all been collapsed.
Oh, you're thinking about collapsing it. Okay, I was thinking about slicing through.
I slice and then project. Oh, I
Because
see.
if you slice as well, so would like your waist be in one part, in one sort of dimension, like in one like slice, and then your head might be in another bit. And
If there was another slice, yeah, you might get your head
oh,
on
if
a
there's
different
only
one.
one slice,
I'm thinking
now
just
I get
one
it.
slice, yeah.
I thought there were
Yeah.
multiple slices.
Ah.
But I don't know how you'd move if you were just to slice through your
You
midriff.
can't. Yeah. I don't think anybody would be able to move.
Well, that's the thing, yeah.
There'd be no
it's a
movement.
ridiculous
I know.
question.
Well,
It's a ridiculous question.
I was imagining not that we were sliced, but that we were collapsed, like
Yeah,
the
collapsed.
Simpsons.
So like in that case, if I was holding this above me, I would become Millionaire's Shortbread as well as James Wells.
Ah, but the thing is,
as
like,
well as the floor below you.
As well, and all of it. It would be horrific.
It'd be like a massive, like, game of Mario, like the old Mario on
But
the
that's if
really
you-
big.
That's
grey
if you were
Game
lucky. It
Boys.
would be like that if you were lucky and you were sliced in the right direction. Imagine if you were sliced like the other direction through Mario.
But maybe you're not sliced, maybe you're just flattened.
But we do
So
see
maybe-
the world in
yeah.
2D, right? So if you close one eye, if you just have one place of perception, you see a flat image, right? You could put that onto a painting or a wall. That is a flat image. So we do perceive the world. It's only,
It's only when you
stereoscopic
move
vision, right?
It's only when you move through the world that it becomes 3D.
Yeah, then it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah. Freaks me out every time.
So does anyone research and answers this?
Are you asking yourself?
Evidently not.
We all know that it's you.
I did. Right. So, I mean, it would be quite interesting if we ended up in two dimensions. Because basically, what I was thinking of is what would happen if we ended up in two dimensions instantaneously. So if it was suddenly announced by the government that everything was to be 2D from a single moment, and then they made it happen because obviously the government can do whatever they like. then you'd have to imagine like a slice through all of space that exists. It's just a flat slice going through everything, and that would be the slice that you then exist in. So you'd have to hope that slice goes through you, otherwise you won't exist anymore.
Now, like, in what direction are you going to get projected onto this slice?
Well, yeah, this is the problem. However you're sliced, you'll be stuck. So if you're sliced through your waist, you'll forever just be like an oval blob on the 2D plane, and that'll be you. Whereas if you're sliced like from your head down to your toes, then you'll look like a kind of 2D cartoon, and you'll be more recognizable as a person.
Or you could just not be sliced.
You must be sliced. The government has decreed it.
Right.
James, you'll know about this one. Isn't there some strange German scientist back in the day who used to take actual like millimeter thick slices of humans all the way through? There's one in the Wellcome collection on Euston Road.
He still exists.
Does he still exist?
He's an alive person.
I knew
man.
you'd know about it.
Is he the
so good.
plastication one?
He's the plastication man. Yeah.
Wow.
As he's known in those circles.
Oh, right.
Gunter van Hagens
Is his name
is his name
these days.
these days.
And will remain.
And will remain. But
Is he the guy who runs like plastic?
yeah,
through...
so he puts plastic through blood vessels and sort of preserves the human body in a way that you can't really preserve it through sort of traditional methods. But what's quite dark about how he sort of demonstrates his work is that you go to the exhibitions and it won't just be like a man with a slice in it. It'll be like a man playing chess with another man, and they'll both be sliced into loads of slices, doing like real poses, or just like a man playing basketball suspended in midair.
I'm assuming he hasn't just attacked people, when they weren't expecting it.
I mean, these people have signed up for it.
Oh, they have. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if they specified if they wanted to be the basketball man.
So when you go and see them, are they sort of like suspended from something? Are they propped up? Or
So
are they,
I think
contained in a liquid.
I think the way that they do it is they sort of have Perspex glass, and they'll sort of put the slices within that, and then they'll have, Perspex like slices sort of aligned next to each other. And some of them are quite weird because the Perspex will be sort of on wheels, so you can like pull slices further apart and sort of expand the human body across the size of a room.
Is it useful? As a doctor, have you ever gone, I'm really glad I've seen that slice because now I understand how,
Well, I mean, at uni you do anatomy with, at uni we did live anatomy. So we did with sort of live sections. It is useful. It is useful. I mean, it's weird because you'll have the lecture beforehand and you'll be sort of looking out for the structures when you do the anatomy session. And so you're kind of focused in on identifying those structures, and you detach from the fact that that's a person. And then there'll be a sort of a flash of, that was an actual person. Like I remember the man that we did the anatomy on had a sort of navy tattoo on his forearm. And I remember moving over his arm and just being like, oh, wow, that's weird. He had a tattoo at one point. He had a life. He was in the Navy, and it sort of really sort of brings you back to the fact there is a person.
So the answer is we can exist as 2D
No.
people.
So going back, no, if we could just exist as these blobs. So the slice happens, and however you're sliced, you end up as this blob on this plane. Now imagine if you're inside a room and the slice didn't happen to go through the door. Then you're now surrounded on every single side by a wall that you can't get through. So you're then trapped forever inside that room, right?
So if you had like a diagonal slice that cut the door away.
Exactly, yeah, that didn't go through the door, but you still cut through you. Then you're on the new 2D plane that's new reality, but you're surrounded on every side by walls. Now, if you get lucky and you're sliced in such a way that you can still move around the rest of the world, then yeah, you still have freedom. But this is really cool because this kind of is a good way of thinking about the fact that there are very possibly extra dimensions. So you know how maths like really well predicts the future of science often. So like they invented like imaginary numbers, and then that came to be like the basis of quantum mechanics, even though people thought imaginary numbers were ridiculous for a really long time. And then it was like, well. And then like Einstein's, like loads of his ideas about relativity came from like a late 1800s paper as well of maths that again was thought to be just kind of beautiful but pointless at the time. So what we're doing now with string theory is, all the string theorists are convinced that there are 10 dimensions because they've got this 10-dimensional maths that works really well within itself, but we've no way of proving it. But it's still really, really beautiful. And so people are trying to imagine what life would be like if there were extra dimensions. So we've got the 3 of direction and the 1 of time, and they think there are 6 more somewhere mysteriously. So going back to us being 2D and stuck on that plane, we're like stuck inside a room if we're cut in the wrong way. But we know that in 3D we could escape the room because there's a door out of the room, but it can't be seen from that 2D plane that you're stuck in. So what if there are other dimensions that we could use to walk? I mean, we're in London at the moment, but we could just go through that dimension to get to Australia immediately. And this is like the idea of connectivity in space, why people are so convinced about the idea of things like wormholes. Because they think, like bits of space could be connected together in dimensions that we don't fully understand. Anyway, this is an area that is still like right at the fringes of what people know about and think about. But that's why I thought it was quite a cool question, Josie. So thanks.
Thanks.
Right, I've got a question. Topical question, since we are all currently bathing. How long could someone, a human, one of us, for example, survive in a bath?
This might be quite important for you, Matt. You spend a lot of time in
I do
baths.
spend a lot of time in baths. Yeah.
What's the longest time you've spent in a bath?
Probably like 3 hours tops.
And how does it make you feel?
I just feel so relaxed.
Was it your
This is
decision?
the problem. When I did that talk at the Sadler's Wells, they were asking me about the temperature of the bath water, and they were like, "Oh, do you want it nice and warm and comfortable?" And I was like, "No, I want it really cold, because otherwise I will be so relaxed doing this talk that I'll forget that I'm supposed to be doing a talk, and I'll forget everything I'm supposed to say." This is what used to happen in the old Science of the Bath episodes that I did. I would just get so chiller that I'd then forget everything I was supposed to do. But that would then make me really stressed, because it would just be this cycle of stress and chill, rapid succession.
Isn't that meant to be healthy? It's like a contrast shower or something.
Well, that's like when you get hot water and then cold water one after the other, whereas this was just continuous hot water and me trying to focus. Yeah, it was bad recipe. So now
you'd be constantly topping up
with
warm when you were filming at home.
No, I keep it cool.
Keep it cool.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Does that mean you have
Sounds
nice
grim.
pores?
You mean after? Wait, why? Is that?
I don't know. Well, isn't it? Aren't you meant to? What is it? You have like you go for a nice steam and you get all hot, and then you go and have a cool down, and that closes your pores and stops the mess getting in.
Yeah.
I don't know how.
You look at me for the answer. I think that's rubbish. I think it is rubbish.
Really?
Might not be. I think it is. But people like saying that, don't they? Get warm, open your pores. Get cold, shut
Get your pores open.
Get 'em
open
shut.
them up.
Open them up.
Have a
clean 'em
rummage
out,
around.
Come on, everyone have a quick
all the-
squeeze.
Close
Yeah.
them. Get them closed afterwards.
One by one.
Look, I don't know about you, but ladies are often struck down for their pores. Have like poreless skin is often advertised.
Poreless skin.
Yeah, they're like, oh, cover up your pores, and you're like, no.
They're there for a reason.
Yeah,
Leave
pores
them
are
alone.
good.
So when you're in this bath for a very, very long time,
Yeah.
you just like wearing swimming shorts or like in the nud or in a wetsuit.
Well, I always am fully dressed from the waist up, and then from the waist down, it just depends on the mood.
How long does it take to swim the channel?
It varies. It's between, I think, 12-ish, maybe 15-ish hours is the fastest.
Why would anyone
It's
do
8.
that?
But it's people. Sometimes it takes like up to like 24 hours, I think.
That's quite
It's
a long
real
time, isn't
endurance
it?
because it completely depends on the current. I don't know exactly, but I was looking into it quite a lot because I'd love to do it. But the main reason I want to do it, I feel like I've already said that on this podcast. Maybe I haven't.
No.
I've not heard it.
The main reason I want to do it is because of
No.
James. This is your first.
It's the first podcast I've listened to.
No.
You haven't said it in this one, so carry on.
Yeah, because when you swim the channel, the traditional thing is that you cover your entire body in goose fat to keep yourself warm.
Yeah.
And that
Or
would be
Vaseline.
great.
Presumably,
be great.
it's a good little
Specifically
barrier
the
as well.
fat from beautiful little geese.
Yeah.
You'd know exactly what it would be like to be a roast potato at Christmas.
And that's purely the reason you want to swim the channel.
Wait, geese are never killed for their fat, are they? That's like
What, purely?
surely it's a byproduct.
It is a byproduct. You can't cook goose meat without rendering a lot of fat because they're extremely fatty birds.
The thing is, who eats goose though? You know, I feel like the average person might buy more goose fat in their lifetime than actual goose meat.
This is true.
Well, I believe the graph of goose fatness versus time goes endlessly upwards until Christmas, at which point it then drops down to 0 again and the geese re-begin.
And lands on a plush pillow.
According to the song,
What song is that?
Christmas is coming and the goose is getting fat. So what I did is I took that song and I turned that into a graph.
And then you just squeeze the goose and extract the fat.
I think maybe or they just eat the goose at Christmas, I think. I've never eaten a goose at Christmas.
Well, it was what we used to have before turkey, wasn't it? It used to be the staple was that you would have a goose for Christmas.
Josie, you're obviously the oldest person on the podcast. So you'll have to tell us about the days when this occurred.
I think I'm the youngest, no?
Oh, right, okay.
Well, I'm not as young as Sophie Ward, but she's not here today.
Well, where were we? What happens? How long can someone survive in a bath? Has someone researched an answer?
I have researched an answer.
Woo!
I'll roll it out, James.
Does anybody have any ideas?
I reckon.
I've got a question. What is the longest, do you think, that somebody has spent underwater continuously?
What,
Without
like
breathing
face?
equipment.
No, with breathing equipment.
Like
Not like holding their breath, as in just surrounded by water.
All right. How long
there
an
we go.
individual has spent underwater with breathing equipment? Probably because
not a bath.
No, that's a good. We'll pick that up later.
Is there a
That's
good
an
way to
interesting
eat
point.
underwater? Because if you can eat, then you can survive a lot longer. I
Okay,
reckon someone
so
could.
say you can eat.
Yeah.
You can eat. So somebody's done this. This has been done by somebody.
I reckon they could stay underwater for a good 80 days.
How can you eat underwater?
Through a tube.
Ugh.
Tube it straight in.
Yeah. 80 days. Anybody got an advance on that?
I reckon less. I reckon mentally you'd go unstable before that. So I don't think you'd survive in that way. I'll go for 40 days.
40 days. Yeah, 120 days.
Now, before anyone answers, do you know about the anchoring effect?
No.
Yes.
That's just the psychological thing where everyone anchors their answer around the first answer that was given. So we've all got like roughly either side of 80, haven't we? And I imagine we're all way off.
You're
Could
quite
be like
far off.
5 days.
This is not hypothetical. This is like something that somebody's done. So they had scuba apparatus. They had a feeding tube. They were catheterized. Okay, so they had a tube. You know what
Why couldn't they just have a wee just into the...
Well,
They were in a tank.
Be
were
around
they?
your
they're in a
face, wouldn't it?
tank.
They're in a tank.
Yeah,
They're in a
you wanna-
tank.
You want to look after your environment, don't you?
Absolutely. And it was 10 days.
Only 10.
And that's the record.
And then what happened when they just got bored?
It just got out.
So that's not really
Could you-
science. is it?
Would you
No.
would you get like really would you get sick though?
Well, they weren't going to keep him in there until he died. And then we're just like,
Oh, so like after
40
10
days. There we go. We have our answer.
Let's do it again.
So what? So after 10 days, what the person was like, oh, I've had enough of this.
Maybe you'd set, I think, I don't blame him personally. Tim from South Africa is his name. He did it in a shopping mall.
Like, it's like an art piece or
What, like a performance art piece?
Yeah.
No, I think he was just trying to set a record of how long he can be underwater.
Was he in a wetsuit?
He was in a wetsuit. He was in a wetsuit. He was probably kitted up for it, you know.
Wow.
David Blaine did 8 days. He was not in a wetsuit. He did 8 days and then afterwards tried to set the breath holding record. But the producers for that show, which was called Drowned Alive and was streamed nationally in the US, the producers decided quite last minute that it wouldn't be a feat enough for him to simply hold his breath for the longest time whilst immersed in a tank after having been there for 8 days. They had to do it whilst getting himself unshackled in a sort of Houdini-esque underwater feat. And I mean, you can imagine that doing something like that is going to sort of slightly stress you out and raise your heart rate and raise your metabolic rate and make it harder to hold your breath. So he came out at 7 minutes, being like a minute short, and was essentially fitting when he came out.
wow.
But he survived.
Lad.
So we don't really know the answer to this question, but it's probably longer than 10 days, but probably not that much longer. All right.
Why?
So the reason is that being immersed in water after a length of time, because of the effect, especially of pure water, on the keratinized layer in your epidermis, you get a disruption in the
epidermis is your skin, right?
yes, the outer layer of your skin.
Yep.
You get a disruption in the layer between sort of epidermis and the dermis, and you essentially get skin breakdown. And especially if you're in a bath and your waste products are going to be in the bath and you have lots of skin flora as well, you will probably get an infection and succumb to sepsis within a couple of weeks, I reckon.
Really? Because your skin's all falling off and getting infected and it's all a bit of a mess.
Mm-hmm.
Quite a bleak scenario.
Would be
isn't
a
it?
nice end, would it?
Wouldn't be nice, would it?
I don't think you'd be relaxed anymore.
Here's another question. So why do we get wrinkly?
I thought it was to the grip.
Isn't that wrong? Isn't that been disputed? I heard, no?
What's the dispute?
Oh, I can't remember what the other reason was, but apparently it doesn't help your grip. Is that true?
It does.
It does help your
Yeah.
grip. Was there another possible
They
reason?
did.
I swear
They
I
did
heard
a
about
study
this
where they
recently.
got people to pick up small
I was gonna say, yeah, I
marbles,
thought so.
and people performed better having had their hands submerged. And it's not actually a sort of passive process of osmosis. It's a active process brought about by changes in the vasculature under the skin. And they know this because people who've
Vasculature is your blood stuff,
blood
right?
vessel, yeah. So people who've had sort of nerves severed in the hand, so the autonomic nervous system, which is responsible for sweating and your fight and flight response, heart rate, respiration, etc.
Autonomic is the panicky stuff.
Exactly, yeah.
Just demedicinizing.
Exactly, yeah.
Long words.
So the autonomic nervous system, people who have had their autonomic nervous system severed in their fingers do not get wrinkled fingers.
So it's like a panic response to get wrinkly fingers.
Well, it's
of.
just a
Like a gentle
innate
panic.
response, yeah.
Cool.
Cool.
Well, what are we waiting for? Let's get wrinkly.
And now for the mystery midsection. Just before we started the show, I gave everyone the following question.
The Javan green magpie is one of the most endangered birds in the world, with an estimated 50 remaining in the wild, and the same in captivity. What method of feeding the precious birds have they adopted at a zoo in Prague?
I then asked everyone to write down a fictional but reasonable sounding answer. And I will now read out all of those answers with the real answer mixed in. Everyone will then get the chance to decide which answer they think is right. A Heston Blumenthal affair, where the food is disguised as a yellow magpie. When a real magpie goes to groom another, it discovers it is delicious. Food is provided in transparent cylinders, at the bottom of which are shiny, attractive objects. Being highly intelligent, they learn to eat the food to expand their collections of treasure. The Javan magpies are fed using a red puppet. No one knows why they like that. The Javan green magpie is one of a group of cannibalistic birds found on the island of Java. Similar dead magpies are painted in a close shade of green and presented to the endangered birds. Insects are bred in ultraviolet tanks and chosen by specially employed insect inspectors, ensuring a pathogen-free diet for the dear birds.
When we did the insects inspected one, James Hartley was looking around at everyone so expectantly, as if to check whether it was good or not, and if people's reactions were good. It must be his. He looked so hopeful.
Oh, I like that there's kind of like two sort of cannibal versions.
Yeah.
Where did that come from? So there's one where like another bird that they've got to eat is just painted to look like them, and then the other one is like a big thing of stuff, right, painted to look like a magpie that they go and lovingly groom and then
no, it's
find
not
out,
cannibal.
oh no,
Oh, but they end
you're
up
delicious.
Yeah.
I don't think any birds are cannibalistic, are they?
I met Heston Blumenthal once.
Did you?
He was totally like, he's just talks at you. I mean, I say met him. It wasn't really, I might as well have been watching him on a screen from a distance. But he just like said all of this stuff about how we don't smell food. We hear it with the vibrations of the molecules in our nose.
He sounds fun.
It's a bit much, isn't it?
It was
It's
really,
quite
it was really intense. No, he's obviously like really interesting guy. But it was a bit,
You probably have them in small doses.
it's a bit intense.
Wow.
But it'd be quite fun to work for him to try and develop some weird foods. Should we select our answers?
Yeah,
Because I'd
let's
like
do
to
it.
go for Heston Blumenthal's. No, I wouldn't really. I don't know what I'm going to go for. I'm
Quite a spread, isn't it?
going to go for the red puppet.
All right. Shiny objects at the bottom of a cylinder. I'm staring at you because I believe it may be your answer. I'm not sure.
I think that is Matt's answer. I can see it in his eyes. I'm going to go for the treasure cylinder.
Tell us, James, what's the truth? Has he done it again? How do you
For
do
God's
this?
sake.
Magpies like shiny things.
Oh my goodness me. So I can inform you that the shiny objects one was Matthew's.
And they're clever. Magpies are
Therefore, he's the winner
underappreciated.
this time round. In fact, the zookeepers of Prague Zoo are using a red puppet that
No.
looks somewhat
Wow.
like the magpies, and they just like it, and no one knows why.
Did you already know this?
It's outrageous.
Oh, who was the other cannibalistic one? Because I was the Heston Blumenthal.
That was good.
Oh, that was me.
Yeah,
that
very
was
good.
me. Yeah.
Did you do the insects one, James?
Yeah, I did actually. Bit of a giveaway though. So,
Yeah, I think that was my fault, to be honest.
James Hartley. Got a little quizzy, mate?
I do. Right. So the next question is: if you can't kill someone by throwing a penny off the Empire State Building, how many pennies would you have to attach together, and how many notes?
Where did this question come from, James?
Peter Lake from Cardiff. Thank you very much for your question,
It's
Peter.
a guest question.
It's a guest question.
Nice one, Pete.
So this comes from the whole if you throw a penny off the top of the Empire State Building, then it will then you can't possibly kill someone with it because the terminal velocity just won't get high enough for it to hurt. It will just bounce off someone and they'll just be like, oh.
Still be painful though, right?
I think it might be a little bit painful, but definitely wouldn't come close to killing them.
Would it be more painful than if it was off, like, I don't know, like a 2-story building?
I think it'd be the same.
Same. Okay.
Unless you threw it downwards, and then it'd be more painful off the top of the 2-story building because it wouldn't have had as much time to slow down.
And presumably,
That's weird to think, isn't it? That stuff would slow down as it's falling. But that's what happens, isn't it? If
Is
it's
it?
going faster than
Yeah.
its terminal velocity. Yeah, if you throw a
Throw
penny
it
downwards
faster than its terminal
than it
velocity.
can go. And it's the same. That's why everything burns up when it re-enters the atmosphere because it's going way too fast considering what its comfortable speed in the atmosphere should be. So when like a meteor enters the atmosphere, it's going ridiculously fast and the atmosphere's like, hang on a minute, what's all this? Give it a little slow down, burn it up.
Burn you up and make a nice little display in the sky for the folk.
and does the size of the penny, that's probably important as well.
Yeah.
Might be important.
That like classic like 16-year-old got it on your wall print of the like 8 guys sat on the New York skyscraper in like the 1920s.
Yeah.
They probably dropped a few bits and bobs.
They probably themselves.
Hopefully not
as well.
tools.
How far are they hanging off the building?
That's where the phrase hanging out came from.
Is that for real?
No. Did you know? Did you know that there is more monopoly money printed in the world than real money?
That seems about right.
Does that seem right?
Well,
I read that and I was like, that can't be right. And then you know what I did, like a responsible scientist? I did not fact check that a second time. So I will now do that now.
just play some elevator music while this goes on.
So yeah, the fact in inverted commas, I don't know why I'm putting it in inverted commas because it is a fact, is that in the US every year, so it's limited to the US. The federal government prints about, or the Fed prints about $1 billion each year, and Monopoly prints about 30 billion.
Whoa. I find that even more surprising because they have $1 bills, right? Whereas I was thinking like if it was the UK, then you would be like, oh, well, I have £5 notes, £10 notes.
But this is where it's the value, the theoretical value of Monopoly money is higher because obviously they're printing like $1 million notes and stuff, whereas they don't have that in.
Oh, I thought it was like per sheet.
Yeah. Just an important point on this place where I found out the answer to the question, true or false, more Monopoly money is printed than real money in the US each year. The second most popular answer after the one I just used to answer it was, who cares? So, okay, right. Going back to the question. So I was thinking,
What was the question?
if you tape all the pennies together, then it will be kind of like a slug in like a rail gun,
Yeah.
won't it? Just
That'll do some damage.
that would do some damage,
For
you would have
sure.
thought. Because it's keeping approximately the same air resistance. It's going down like a nice slender pole. Imagine a
stack.
snake heading towards ground.
Yeah.
It's not going to be going sideways, isn't it? It's not
No,
going to be
it's
messing
gonna be going
about.
straight
It's going to be
down.
head first.
It's going to be furiously hissing as it wiggles its way to the ground.
How many pennies?
Mate, if the snakes could do that, imagine how their tactics would change.
Well, aren't there ones who
Up on
leap
the
from
skies.
trees? I swear there are snakes who live in trees and then go.
I didn't think they attacked.
I think that's why we have roofs, isn't it? Obviously we now have roofs for weather, but originally it was probably for the snakes.
Especially
Was this a
thatched
fact-
roofs, because as they jumped in, they'd get wedged in.
Yeah, thatch was genius, wasn't it?
So,
Has someone got a little answer?
I got a little answer to this, but it's quite a wishy-washy one, because defining how someone gets killed or not by a projectile is like almost impossible. It's like, well, you've got the air density could be changing, there could be a strong wind, or there could be, a slight globule of fat that just protects them that little bit more than someone else. So there's all that to consider. So what we're looking at, so I thought I'd try and compare it basically. The terminal velocity of a penny falling off, anything, once it's got there, is about 65 miles an hour. So it's not actually that fast. Like a paintball gun will shoot something out 190 miles an hour, and you get sort of thwacked with those. Now, of course, they explode a bit, paintballs, so that absorbs a bit of the energy before they kill you or whatever. So I did a few little calculations. It depends on things like the drag coefficient, which is a number selected for all sorts of different shapes. You pick that, and it gives you an idea of what the area it is like, represented as a sphere, I believe.
So basically how much air resistance is going to have there. Yeah,
if something's all spiky and large, then it has a bigger drag coefficient. If it's nice and smooth and slender like the front of a plane, then you've got a low drag coefficient. Anyway, so I had a look at that, and they're a bit interrelated. So as you increase the mass, your terminal velocity increases, of course. And as your terminal velocity increases, your kinetic energy increases as well. So you've got two things happening there, both an increase in velocity and mass, causing an increase in kinetic energy there. So I thought, how am I going to work out how much kinetic energy would kill a person? And again, this is quite sort of wishy-washy, but this is how they measure ballistics. So the Californian Department of Justice, they have a 109 joule limit on their ballistic vests. And this is called...
what is ballistics?
So
Sorry.
109 joules of energy.
Yeah, joules of energy
On their
your
ballistics is when you like fire something at something else.
Okay.
So you're like, right, shoot me in the chest, and you've got this vest on. What they say is it's called the back face signature, which is if a bullet doesn't penetrate your skin,
Yeah.
but it still hits you,
Yeah.
you can still be sort of jiggled enough that you perish. So this is an interesting sort of concept that I'd never come across before. But
Right.
so like sort of like if you get hit on the belt buckle, there's still a good chance you're going to die. Not because the bullet's penetrated your skin, but you've just been wobbled with such a
shock.
force that it might have ruptured cells and all organs and all that sort of stuff. So I thought, okay, let's take that as a sort of a limit. That's what this vest can withstand. I mean, I don't know how else to define it, but that'll do for now.
That'll do, James.
That'll do for now.
absolutely.
Sounds pretty
And so
fancy.
at that, I mean, the calculations suggest it would be 16 pennies.
Oh.
Just 16.
Yeah. In a rod, drop it down, and then assuming, you've got someone with a vest and it hits them in the chest, that's a nice little sentence. Then, yeah, they're going to be on the very limit of what California...
So,
Blimey.
Peter, keep it to 15, right?
Yeah.
I
15
feel
and below.
slightly worried with what power and knowledge we've now released onto the universe.
Luckily, I fiddled with the calculations, so the actual answer is completely different. No, I haven't. It is 16.
Wait, but what about notes?
Notes, I couldn't understand really why they would be included other than to be like, sorry, mate.
Are we safe?
So that's good. But I mean, just as a one final thing, let's have a guess, right? So we got this 109 joules, right, for this ballistic vest that it can withstand. What do you reckon a boxer has in his punch in terms of kinetic energy sort of delivered to the recipient?
100 joules. Rounded to the nearest 100 joules.
I'd say more.
More than 100 joules.
Yeah.
What?
100.
Literally every other number
200.
above 200.
Oh, 3 joules.
3 joules. So
I'll
apparently
go the opposite way.
the top sort of boxer can deliver about 1,000 joules. Just
What?
boom, right? So obviously you're thinking, wait a minute, what? That's like
Is
bullet
this
it
sort of
because it
stuff.
doesn't touch for very long?
When you
it's-
say the vest is 109 joules, that's just for a tiny, tiny projectile, right?
It's not for like a boxing glove, which is going to
So,
dissipate
well,
that energy.
so this is the reason that boxers wear boxing gloves,
Yeah.
right? Because you're extending the amount of time over which that energy is dissipated.
Yeah.
So that's why you're not seeing people's heads literally be blown off their bodies.
Oh my gosh! So if you
Which
did
would be quite
bare
an
knuckle
impressive
boxing,
sport.
could really be quite fatal.
And it is. Yeah,
Well,
I've seen them
non-bare
in the
knuckle
barns
boxing.
of Devon. Anyway, so yeah,
That's the end.
that's
Thanks,
the end of
James.
that one.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks all. Thanks. Right. See you next week.
and thank you, Peter.
And we have arrived at the end. Points have been allocated by our producer, Sam Lee, according to a system that we don't understand. Sam, what's the verdict?
Well, recording this podcast as we are at the tail end of the great summer heatwave of 2018, scores have been awarded this week on how well each panellist has managed to retain their original state of matter. It's disappointing to see the two Jameses sublimating straight to a gas over the course of this recording session. Bad luck, lads. Matthew couldn't quite cling on, sloshing as he is now in a small jar next to his shoes. So congrats this week to Josie, who remains, as ever, a human-shaped solid. Well done.
Oh, nice, Josie. For now, thanks to Josie Peters, the winner,
Thank you.
James Wells,
Thank you.
James Hartley,
Thank you very much.
Matthew Shribman, that's me, our producer, Sam Lee, and to Unbound for their generosity in hosting and supporting us. You can follow us on social media by searching A Piece of String or String Podcast.
If you would like to learn more about astronomy and astrophysics, you can find me on Twitter and YouTube at Josie A. Peters.
And if you'd like to learn about many and various scientific curiosities from a man in a bath or otherwise located, you can follow me on social media by searching Science in the Bath or Matthew Shribman.
And if you have a quirky question of your own that you'd like a scientific answer for, then please reach out to us on any of our social media channels.
Thanks for listening. Please rate and review us. We'd love to hear what you think. We'll be back again in a fortnight. And as usual, let's never speak of any of this ever again.